close that down. Cool. All right. Welcome, Shawna. I'm so glad that you are here. We are, we've decided that we want to have a conversation about living your best life. And I'm really excited that we get a chance to do that today. So for those of you who don't know Shawna, I'm going to read her bio because I will screw it up if I don't just read it. So Shawna Burkholder is a life coach and a mentor on a mission to help individuals discover their passion and their purpose. With her own personal journey of overcoming burnout and self-discovery, Shawna has developed a unique approach to life coaching that combines her own experiences with her training. Through her program, she has two, Journey to Wholeness and Elite Mentorship Forum. Shawna provides individuals with the tools and support they need to lead their best life. At the heart of Shawna's approach is her belief that everyone deserves to lead a fulfilling life. Whether you're seeking relief from burnout or looking to deepen your understanding of yourself, Shawna's programs offer a supportive and empowering path to personal growth. So welcome, Shawna. That's a pretty nice introduction bio. I like it.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
So
it's interesting to hear it come back to yourself too. It's like, wow, I do that.
Yes, that's me.
Yeah.
How did you get into this?
Well, probably like a lot of us, we learn from our failures. We fall forward, as they say. And I don't actually label it a failure so much as a life-changing experience that I had. It was interesting. I was thinking about it the other day. It actually started 10 years ago. I was coming up onto my 50th birthday, and I wanted to make some changes because I was one of those people that thought, well, there's got to be more to life. Not that my life was bad, but I was thinking there were aspirations, things I wanted to do with my career and my relationship. And I was moving forward, got involved with the program, decided to do some transformation. And the more that I got into it, I realized that I wasn't as happy as I was pretending to be or telling myself that I was. And I ended up in my case, I felt like my examples are kind of extreme. I did hit burnout at the job. I was physically, emotionally, mentally exhausted. I was seeking therapy. My doctor was telling me antidepressants were probably would be something for me to consider really seriously. And I just got to a point where I had enough. And I quit. I quit everything, actually. I quit my job. I quit my relationship. I sold my house and I traveled to find myself. So that's how I started, is this acute awareness of understanding how burnout slowly can overtake your life. There's the story about the frog that's in cold water and you turn up the heat a little at a time. And before you know it, they're in the thick of boiling water and it's too late to jump out. I feel like I jumped out just in time. And
I'm glad for that.
Yeah, me too. So that was a wake up. That was my wake up call. And one of the things that I was assessing is the line of work that I was doing. The parts that I loved was when I was lifting up my coworkers or lifting up my clients. I loved that part. So I thought, well, what profession does that? My degree is in psychology. I had at one point thought I could become a psychologist or psychiatrist, but instead the life coaching realm resonated with me for a lot of reasons, but most times it's because I feel as if people who seek out life coaching or a coach of any sort already have a sense that they want better and they're willing to take the action to make better. They just need someone to help them get to that point. So that's how I came into this field.
Interesting. Yes. Yeah. You've had a journey, that's for sure. And when you talk about in your bio about living from experience, that you've been there, so you understand the highs and the lows that come with not being happy where you're at. And then finding that next level. So what do you think it is that pushes somebody to say, okay, I'm ready to move forward, rather than just kind of swimming in that cycle of unease and uncomfortableness and knowing that they're not living their best life. They know that they're kind of just floating, but they know that there's something else out there, but they're not really sure if they're going to take the leap.
Yeah.
What does that look like in your space that you've seen?
Yeah, well, I find that it's individualized. It's different for everyone. I used to label my former relationship as living at the lowest common denominator, a math equation, because often we approach things like, hey, I want to go out to a dinner and a movie. Let's make it a special occasion. And it was like, no, well, that sounds like fun, but I don't feel like driving that far. And and then it was like, okay, let's order a pizza and watch the news, so so it's different for some people. They live in that space of numbness and they can be there for a very long time. For others, I'm at that breaking point with my job. There's just it's so varied, and there's a number of different phases of burnout. So what's the wake up call for people? Yeah, it is just so. Sometimes it's watching a friend struggle. Sometimes it's something like this, being, surfing through Facebook and finding something where someone says something where the light bulb goes on and they're like, I see myself in this scenario. And yes, I've been wanting something more. I haven't acknowledged that. So I think that's the first thing. Notice what you're noticing. Notice how you're living. Notice if you're in a place of numbness or mediocrity. And do you want something more? Because that's the key. Do I want something more? What is my heart's desire? What would my best life look like? And it doesn't have to be dramatic. It could be a few steps. And then the next question is, okay, what do I do about it?
What do I do? Yeah. How do I get there?
Yeah, and we know about that part.
Yes, we do. We do.
Yeah.
So transitioning into like where you were stuck to in taking that action, you said you traveled a bit. So where did you go and what were you gathering while you were on these trips?
Well, because I'd sold my house, I was fortunate to have a little bit of equity. So I packed up my car and I went on a road trip. And one of the things that I'd realized in the ending years of my relationship is I had stopped. I'd become isolated from family and friends. I mean, we weren't, and this was, like I said, 10 years ago. So this is pre-COVID. And I missed my family. And most of my family's on the West Coast. So which this helped because it was like, hey, do you mind if I come and visit for a little bit? So I had a loose map of where I wanted to visit and things I wanted to do and see, because I had been denying that part of me. It was that sense of connection and that sense of adventure and wonderment. So my first few days were at my brother's, then I went to see an aunt, and there's like 6-hour drive. That was one of my goals too, is how could I do this trip without driving more than 6 hours a day? That wasn't something that I wanted to do, was like a 12-hour driving stint. And the first couple of stops felt like a vacation because it was different, right? And I was reconnecting with family. The next stop was a hotel in the state of Idaho, Lake Coeur d'Alene. And that's when I started to have that space to confront myself, to recognize, what have I done? Have doubts. That's when the tears started coming. It was and I remember staying there. There was a hotel. I just stayed at a regular hotel there, and I don't think I came out of the room except for to go get something to eat, because like the stages of grief, I finally kind of was letting that dam break and feel it and let it out. From there, I went to Montana, which was beautiful. Then I went down to Yellowstone Park. And again, each place I went was peeling back a layer so that I could get to know myself better. And essentially, I did end up traveling for about 3 months, between camping, and I had a timeshare I could stay at, hotels and families and friends. I just made this big loop and made my way back up to the state where I had left, but I chose to relocate to a different city, which meant I was starting fresh. But that's what I needed. Now, for some people, again, they don't necessarily have to go through that journey to find their place. They may not. I look at it this way. I felt like I was pretty far off course, so it took me a while to get back onto the course.
Makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you were kind of peeling back these layers as you were traveling and moving through your physical journey, but also your emotional journey.
Yeah.
So I would assume that you take some of your clients through this same peeling back the layers, what are some of the tools that that you implemented for yourself and that you implement for your clients to be able to kind of peel back that onion? That onion can have a lot of different layers.
It does. So the name of my program is called Journey to Wholeness. It resonates with me. Obviously, I think we're all on our own personal journeys. There's the hero's journey where we kind of reach this point of climax and have to make decisions. So I use that as a metaphor. So whether your journey is getting in first class on a plane and traveling to, another country, or it's hiking through the woods, or in my case, it was a road trip, we're all on a journey. And I think that's something we can relate to. Within my program, I use an acronym called MAP, M-A-P. The first tool is we do a measurement. We take an assessment tool of various areas of your life, because we got to figure out where you're at and where you want to go, because there's no point well, I shouldn't say there's no point. A journey makes a little bit more sense if you have a vision and you know what direction you want to head in, right? So and a lot of times that's why people come to me, is because they feel lost and they don't know how. They either have no vision or they don't know how to get to their vision. So we do this measurement, and it takes into account multiple areas of your life, some of which you might be fine with, and some of which may need to get back aligned to your purpose. So M is for, mapping out, measuring where you're at. The second is action, for the A, and we develop an action plan. That's when it becomes very individualized for each person. For some, like if it's job burnout, it may be, what are the small things we can tweak within your job to make it less stressful for you? Or it could be a realization that I'm in a line of work that I never wanted. I did it because my parents said I should become, or it was the first job that came my way, but I didn't want, this is not. So then what are the steps to move into what you do want? So we create the action plan. And then the P stands for purpose. So that purpose, again, is tied into, what's your vision? What are your gifts? How do you want to make contributions into the world? How do you want to be connected? That's part of your deeper why. What's motivating you? And then that's basically the engine or the fuel that takes you on your journey. So that's like a high level, because again, it varies person to person for the specific tools that they need.
For sure. Yeah, that sounds like a clear plan, though. You have a plan of action when you tackle this stuckness or this lost part of somebody when they come to
Oh, I
you.
like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with the map, the measurement, the action plan, and the purpose, I would assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume you have to kind of whittle all the way back to who is the person deep down inside, and what are their core values, and what's really truly important to them, and that comes back to that P of the map, the purpose.
Yes.
So how do you pull out core values from an individual? Like, how do they figure out what you really stand for?
So I have an exercise, and we can do it together. It can be a homework assignment, because everybody's a little bit different on how much assistance they need. But the process is, write down all the values, the things that you strongly believe in, you feel represents your life, and that you take action towards, like you're in integrity with those values. Now, there could be some other values you don't feel integrous with. Like, one of my personal values is freedom. I love time and financial freedom because I like to travel, which was one of those layers that I figured out. But was I honoring that value? No, not even close. So you list out your values, then you rank them. And part of the exercise is, if I had to choose, is my value of freedom higher than my value of security? And then, so we really want to get to the top values. Then we also deal a lot with mindset. That was where, for me, I needed a lot of work. If that really is my value, why am I not actualizing that? What's holding me back? What's my mindset? So it's this equation of, if that's true, then these rule sets also have to be true. And if they're not, then where did this come from? And we dig deeper. And this is where a lot of it's like, oh, well, I remember my parents always telling me that. And then whatever the label is, money doesn't grow on trees. We talk a lot about finances, right? So I couldn't travel because I never had enough money. Well,
Mm.
why not? Because I couldn't find the damn money tree, right? Right?
Right, right.
Because it's not there, So it's just that exercise and, we call it being rigorous with yourself. You'll get the most out of it if you truly answer the questions and dig deep and don't do it on the surface. Again, that's kind of a phase of denial, like my life isn't that bad, or these are my values. Yeah, I'm good with these. Well, are you really? I mean, you got to have, and that's where having a coach helps, because they'll question you to question yourself. And when you get to the point where, like, no, I know this is what I stand for. This, I would fight for this. And they're like, great, now we're there.
Now we're there. Yep. It's
Yeah.
really about each of us taking responsibility for our own decisions and what we really believe or don't believe,
Yes.
and less about what was ingrained in our environment and
Mhm.
floating through just on somebody else's thought pattern.
Yes.
It's really digging deep into, what do you truly want and believe, and
Hmm.
how are you willing to act on that? Are you willing to float? Are you willing to stop that and take new action? Are you willing to be uncomfortable?
Yes, yes.
And I
And to
think,
see the connection. So if your value is security, but you want to travel, are those in conflict, or how? It depends. So then we dig deeper. What do you mean by travel? And you can't have security around travel. You just need to build in systems and structures and understand what your comfort zones are. But again, a lot of people, that's an aha moment. Like, well, this is why I've never done it. I didn't realize that what I thought I want. So maybe they don't really want it as much as they've been saying they want it. So it's really amazing to watch people have these epiphany about themselves. It's finding that purpose and being in line with what they want.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun. This is a
Yeah.
fun profession.
Yes.
So when clients work with you, how often do they meet with you? Do they see you weekly, monthly? Is it a year thing? Is it multi-year? How do people work in your sphere?
Okay, kind of similar to yours. With Journey to Wholeness, it's a one-on-one program. Generally, we do it in 3-month increments, once a quarter. My experience is, generally speaking, people aren't going to have the depth of results if they just want to do 1 or 2 coaching calls. That's almost more like an exploratory conversation, so that they can see where they're going. But if you've made that decision, like how you open with, how do people know if they're like, I know I want something? 3 months is a starting place. Now, for some, because some people may be further along already or be very self-actualized, that's like the diving board they were ready to jump off of. For others, it's the starting place. So I do it quarterly. Generally, as a rule of thumb, a year is a good plan. For some people, once they've done the year, they realize they've awakened something in themselves and they have a new or a bigger or a deeper goal, and they want to go further on their journey. And they like the support and the accountability of having a coach work with them, because they get insights and tools that otherwise they don't bring to themselves. So that's Journey to Wholeness as a one-on-one program. The other program that I teach, it's called the Elite Mentorship Program, or Forum, excuse me. It's a group program. It's 6 months. And this program came to me through my coach and mentor. His name is Peter Sage. He'd worked with Tony Robbins for 15 years as one of Tony's coaches, devised his own program. I went through the training, and the power in that program is it's a cohort, and you have a group of people, peers, because the saying is, you're probably going to be most like the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you do an assessment and see, who am I hanging with? Are these people that are on a journey of self-improvement and actualization? They might be, or they might not be, but within this program, you are, and everybody's supporting each other. And then there are lessons that we tackle together. It's very transformational because it hits on all areas of our lives: mindset, values, emotions, relationships. So that's a beautiful program, and it runs 6 months. And for both of these, weekly calls,
Awesome.
all online. So
No,
it's
that's a
easy.
good cadence. It's a really good cadence. And I
Yes.
agree with you. The 3 months or the quarterly, that's what I tout all the time. It's a great
Yeah.
starting off place. And what I see
Yeah.
with my clients and with myself, I do this. Everything that I teach, I do it with
I
myself
do.
first to make sure that this is like a solid thing.
Yep.
But knowing that we as humans change and we grow,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
what you say in January may not be the same thing that you say in December. The next,
Mhm.
12 months down the road, and then the next 12 months could be completely different. We're
Yeah.
humans, and we get to morph and get change. Our brains are plastic, so
Mhm.
we get to absorb and make choices with those actions, with your map, the measurement, the action plan, and the purpose. We
Yeah.
get to change things in our lives, and as we change, we grow, and as we grow, we grow into new things, and we have new
Mhm.
interests, and we're able to impact new people. So
Mhm.
I think it's fantastic to be able to have a cyclical opportunity to
Yeah.
continually have a mentor that's a couple of steps ahead of you.
Yes. Oh, and I love that analogy because I heard it from one of my mentors. I'm on the trail ahead of you with the flashlight, right?
Yeah,
So I'm
I've got
like,
the little flag, like little ding 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 ding.
yeah, or and I've got the compass because these are our tools. We use the compass. Which way are we going? And I can say, don't head left. You're going to fall off the cliff. But come up ahead and look at this vista. Let it take your breath away. Let you feel the expansiveness that this life experience has to offer. So I do like that, being ahead with the flashlight or the compass and helping people find their way.
Absolutely. And if we can take like just 3 minutes for a quick exercise for anybody that's staying on with us, listening to this, I would love for you to take just the next couple of minutes, get a piece of paper out, a pen, a
Mhm.
pencil, a crayon, I don't care what you draw with, and write 1 through 5 on a piece of paper.
I'm
And
going to do
then,
this with you.
yeah, get a piece of paper, one through
Yeah.
five,
Yep.
and then I want you to think about the 5 people that you spend the most time with and write them
Mm.
down. Family, friends, coworkers, their dog. The five, I prefer humans, the 5 people that you spend the most time with,
Yeah.
write it down on this list. And I'll just give you like 30 seconds or so.
Yeah. Cheryl, while people are doing that, I find that's a little bit different of an exercise post the start of COVID, because for many people, they probably spend more time with their work families than they do their personal families. And then that switched when they became working at home.
Yeah.
And you might have two people or multiple people working at home, or you might be isolated. So that has shifted in 3 years from what it traditionally had looked like.
Mm-hmm. And people can reflect on that and say, am I better for it or am I worse for it? And what does that
Mhm.
say? What kind of action do I need to take now? So with this exercise, with your 5 people that you're spending the most time with, I want you to look and be honest, be really honest with yourself, and put a positive, like a plus sign, or a negative sign. Are they adding to your life? Are they adding to your purpose and your passion and your core values and what you stand for? Or are they taking away from it? Are they making life harder
Mhm.
for you?
Yeah.
And I want just take a look at the positives and the negatives, and see where you stand. Just a snapshot. It's just a kind of a cool exercise to be like, okay, oh wow, I didn't realize that I was spending a lot of time with so and so, and you know what, that's not helping me get to where I want to be.
Yeah. I'm going to share with that. I had for a long time, and I think we have a little of this in common, because I know I trust you were probably, and may still be, more of an athlete than I ever was. But I took a program that was training me to do a marathon. And I had a girlfriend and we decided to do it together. Now, the good thing was, when I was in this group training, twice a month, we all went together and everybody was excited, and we'd walk together or run together, because it was a learn to run thing. And it was very encouraging. And there was a teacher who taught me things. But in between, my girlfriend and I decided we'd be accountability buddies. And what I realized was, we spent nearly that half hour, 90 minutes, whatever our training time was, bitching about life. And I realized, oh, as much as I'm doing something positive for myself, I'm emotionally, and it was an
Yeah,
emotional vampire, right? Yeah. So we ended up, and it was interesting because I still love this woman dearly and wish the best for her, but I realized, man, she really brings me down. And it made me start looking at my relationships negatively. And I was like, well, that's not good. So yeah, you have to take an honest look and kind of make that assessment.
yeah, yeah. It's really powerful to be
Yeah.
able to reflect on on yourself, on what you're really doing rather than what you
Yeah.
think you're doing. Because I think a
Mhm.
lot of us, we think we're better than we are, or we're smarter than we are, we're prettier than we are. Like there are a lot of things out there that we could look in the mirror and say, oh shit, look, I
Mhm.
said I believe this, but I am doing this.
Yes.
And taking a quick snapshot and realizing that gives you the power to say, okay, I'm okay with that,
Mhm.
or I'm not okay with it. Let's make a new decision.
Yes.
And I think that's really probably part of the basis of what you help people through is
Yeah.
looking at themselves, looking where they want to be, and then helping them progress into where do they actually want to push their life.
Yes. One of the premises that I work from is if you have a goal, like doing a marathon, then you have to say it's not always the goal. It's the concept is who is the person I need to become in order to reach that goal. Yeah, I'm
Yes.
preaching to the choir. So for me, as a child, I was a bookworm, right? That I was a book person. You'd find me in the library, not on the playground during recess, right? that was my that's what I naturally do. So when I decided I was going to do a marathon, that was outside of my comfort zone, which is good because that's where growth happens.
Mhm.
But then I had to adopt the mindset of, well, I think of a marathoner as an athlete. Well, what does an athlete do? They train. How do they train? What's the main thing is consistency, right? So then it wasn't like, well, I can't just go on these group walks and runs twice a month. That was not going to teach me to finish a marathon. So I had to become a marathoner and do what an athlete would do, which really was where all the growth happened. The finish line was amazing, and that's a story for another day. But it was because that proved to myself I did it. I became the person I needed to be in order to accomplish that goal. And for some people, it's how do I switch my identity? How do I know what I need to do or be or have to reach my goal? And that's why we help them.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think you're spot on when you say consistency and really becoming the person that you want to be. I will tell you
Mhm.
that I ran one marathon. I will never run another one. I
But
didn't
you did.
train well for it.
Oh, that's the key, right?
Right. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was, I wish I would have had um an accountability partner to keep me on track, because I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I'll do the training, I'll do the training, I'll do the training. And I didn't do the training, I did everything else. And then the
Yeah.
day came around, I was like, well, let's
Here we
just see
go.
how it goes. And I finished, but whew, it
Yeah.
was a tough one. I wish I would
Yeah.
have had been a little bit more consistent on my training.
Yeah. Because my mindset of not being an athlete was so deeply ingrained in me, I thought the fact that I did the first one was a fluke.
Mm.
Yeah. So I did another one, and then I did another one. I've
How
actually
many have you
done
done total?
13.
Wow, 13.
It took a lot to convince myself. No, I'm kidding.
Wow, good job.
Yeah.
13 marathons.
Yeah.
Wow, that's 26.2 miles times 13. Woof.
Yeah. I never thought about it like that. That's a lot of traction.
And
So
that's a
yeah.
lot of practice, a lot of consistency to be able just to get to the day.
Yeah. And that practice has served me well with the consistency to build my coaching business, to
Mhm.
save money, to purchase the house. These are the lessons that when we become the person we need to be, we develop those habits that will serve us for a lifetime in other areas.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So I'd like to wrap us up a little bit here, but before we do, I want to ask, where was the last place that you traveled?
Ooh, I traveled to Belize. And
Ooh.
yes, which actually, if no, you've never been, for anyone out there that was watching, I'd highly recommend it. It is a safe country to travel in. The exchange for at least the US dollar is very strong in that basically if something's a $10 value in the States, you buy it for $5 in Belize. So your buck stretches. It's the people are friendly, the geography, it's beautiful there. But we came back. It was interesting because weather's been a little iffy. Right at the end of December, well, around the country, the planes were being canceled and diverted and things like that. We ended up staying longer than we anticipated because we couldn't get a flight home. And I can think of worse places to be. But the nice thing was, our both of our mindsets was there's no unsolvable problems. This will be okay. We just rescheduled, checked with lodging. They could accommodate us. And we just had an extended vacation and we came back on New Year's Eve. And I thought, it's a pretty damn good way to end the year. So,
Yeah. Yeah. How do you think that you got to that mindset? Like, how did that take years, or was that just a decision that you made that I'm going to think this way differently?
So I will share that even though 10 years ago I recognized that one of my values was time and money freedom so that I could travel, at that point in time, traveling just meant what's the cheapest way I can get to point A to B and stay with family and friends, as I described. I had never traveled internationally. I've been on planes, but I'd never traveled internationally. I always thought it would be expensive or it would take more than I could manage. And how would I take time off from work? When I went through the Elite Mentorship Forum program myself, one of the things I found was that I needed a change in my mindset. So my very first international travel was a year ago. I have to think about this. A year ago, July, and I went to Tenerife, which is where my mentor lives. And Tenerife is an island that's connected to Spain. And I went there with 250 of my fellow trainers, met up with them, did training, and you know what? All the things that my planner self, I didn't actually worry about it because I was in the right mindset, but things that I had thought I would encounter, difficult transfers, not being able to speak, none of that happened. It was fabulous. And it was like that first marathon. I just needed to burst the bubble of the preconceived notion that I thought it could be in a negative way and say, no, that's not the reality. You can do this. And it was great. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes. Changing that mindset is so huge. It's critical.
Yes.
It's critical
Yes,
to
it
get
is.
to where you want to be.
Yep.
So for those of the people that are listening, what is the best way for people to contact you? Do you prefer social media? Do you prefer email? Do you prefer phone? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
So I think two things. One is social media. I have a Facebook page, Shawna Burkholder, and DM me if you prefer to do that. I'm great with emails, pretty straightforward at the moment. It's shauna.burkholder@yahoo. My website is, oh, I hope less than 30 days ready from being done. So that will be posted at some point, but right now it's non-existent. One of the things I want to
All in
share.
good time. All in good time.
Oh, yes, it'll all come. I have this document and it
Okay.
talks about the 12 stages of burnout. So if anybody's watching this on the replay or is with us now, just put in the comments burnout. I'd love to I can send it to you via direct messaging. It's small. And I was called to say this earlier today because I recognize I've not been sharing this as part of my journey, but there are different stages to burnout. And the first is just like, you get the feeling that you need to prove yourself. Generally it's at the job and you start working harder and then you realize it's starting to impact your health and your relationships. But towards the end stages, you might be self-soothing with alcohol or drugs, or you're getting depressed, or you're feeling like there's no way out. I tend to I've realized I've not been addressing that, and I really want to share with people that if they're in that space, they should reach out to a mental health professional That was part of my journey. I realized that when I was getting into depression, it felt like I'd slid into a hole and it was dark and it was like slippery mud. And I kept trying to climb out of it and I kept backsliding. I want to make sure that when people hear us talking about change your life, it's not that it's hard, it needs help, but for some people, that may not be the step. That's not where they start. They really need to start with reaching out and have someone help them seriously get to the point where they feel that they can breathe again. They've got that lightness and they're on that right path. And mental health is such an issue these days. I want to make sure that people realize that we do have professionals that want to help them and can help them. They just have to reach out.
I think that's an excellent point. And
Yeah.
I think that if anybody is unsure if that's the right step for them, reach out to either one of us.
Yes.
With Shawna's map, that measurement, that action plan can include talking to a therapist, can include
Yeah.
talking to somebody else other than one of us or somebody else in our sphere. It can include
Correct.
the micro steps. And we've talked about this before, is that the micro steps are so crucial. It's really hard to take these big giant steps in changing your life. It's a lot easier taking these small little bites and making small incremental progress. And then all of a sudden, when you look back, you've made these big changes. So I 100% agree with you that there are mental health professionals out there that if you're suicidal, if you're having some negative thoughts about family or death or drugs, those are types of things absolutely that I highly recommend that you reach out to a therapist. And if you don't know who to reach out to somebody like us, and we can put you in touch with the right people.
Exactly.
And that's part of my story as well. When I was reaching burnout in the corporate space, I was actually seeing two therapists at the same time. Thankfully, they were talking to each other.
Oh, good.
But that's how much help I needed. I needed two therapists.
Yeah.
But it was life-changing for me. That was the space that I needed to be able to take those micro steps to be able to get into a better situation for myself.
Yes.
So there's no shame in asking for help in that realm.
Exactly. Yeah. So I appreciate bringing that up because, again, as I mentioned, I tell my story and it sounds like, oh, that sounded so wonderful. She got to travel and look what and it's like, yeah, that's the fairy tale version of it. There was a lot of tears, a lot of work, and a lot of help along the way. We kind of feel alone sometimes to start with, but when we look back, we're like, on my journey, I had different guides to take me through different terrains. I mean, if you want to think of it metaphorically, at different stages, I reached out to different people and they helped me grow and move forward.
Sure.
And I think that's true for everybody.
Absolutely. We can be their Sherpas.
Yeah, I'm going to write that one down. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for having me, Cheryl. This has been so much fun. I appreciate being able to share what I bring to the world. And I know it's very similar with the work that you do. So thank you for that.
Oh, I appreciate you being here and thanks for sharing. And I hope that we've been able to reach a few people today. And if not directly, maybe indirectly down the line somehow.
Exactly. Me too. That's one of my intentions for the day.
All right. So I'm going to pop us off Facebook here. So all of you out there in Facebook world, we'll see you later.